Yeah. I'm Max Derrat. I'm joined as always by my co-host Sybsidian. Let's just jump right into the stuff. We all know why we're here. Let's not waste any time. Syb, I finally get to ask you the question that I've been wanting to ask you for several years now.
Yes.
Kirk or Picard? No, I'm kidding. No.
Janeway, actually. Janeway. Yeah.
So you're one of those. No, I'm just kidding. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Star Trek.
Well, it is a very difficult question because Janeway is really good, but honestly, like, yeah, I know it's such a hard choice. It's such a hard choice.
Right. Yes. Well, let's not waste too much discussion and brain activity on that. No, honestly, we're here to talk about Starfield. I haven't had the chance to play it yet. I'm hopefully going to be able to play it tomorrow once I get my SSD installed. That's the plan. Mm-hmm. Syb, though, has been playing it for the last 5 days in early access. Syb, I want to know your impressions of this game. Go.
All right. So no spoilers.
No spoilers.
I'm going to keep spoilers absolutely not here. I have not finished the main quest. It is one of those scenarios, just like in Fallout 4, where it's like, hey, you better go find your son. And you're like, yes, absolutely. Oh, hey, look at that. Is that a settlement over there? Oh, that's so cool. And hey, there's a quest over there. And then there's some other stuff over here. And it is a never ending slide of content that for me I has not gotten old yet. I specifically avoided doing the main quest content because a lot of people were doing the main quest content and talking about it and talking about what happened after they did it. I chased not primary quests. There's a couple people, there's a big hubbub today in the news about one quest and people are losing their minds about it.
Oh.
I just started that one like late last night and I haven't touched it since. I chased other quests that weren't obvious or weren't big. I got asked to go apply at jobs. I went off to go help some random encounter stuff to see where that led. And then I did specifically things that were not tied to kind of the main branch of any of the main quests, like any of the major routes, like not any of the faction stuff, just other random stuff. And I gotta say, I am absolutely surprised and shocked by how good everything is. I legitimately am. I have some technical hurdles that I'm dealing with on my system. But even with that, the game is absolutely phenomenally great for what a Bethesda game is. A Bethesda game is made to just have stuff for you to do that you like doing in whatever direction you yonder in. Is there something to be said about the depth of that? And my answer to that is yes, just like all their other games have been on launch. Most of the games on launch are not super deep. In the sense that some people think about deepness. I'm not that sort, by the way. I think that if a game has like something that you can sink like 40 hours into, just messing around with like, a settlement system or a shipbuilding system. I spent 6 hours building a ship the other day.
Oh yeah.
And did I feel like my time was wasted by a stupid system that was very, very shallow? No, absolutely not. Did I think that it was a little bit shallow in that there's not as much there as I would like there to be? The answer to that is yes. Am I concerned about that? No. Because this is a system which, again, in all previous games, you look at the marriage system in Skyrim, right? Spoiler alert for the marriage system in Skyrim that's 10 years old.
Right.
That was a system that was added in. Yeah, that was one of the last big patches that they or expansions that they did. But that stuff fleshed out the content there, and then modders made it so that it was even deeper. I think I only ever married Lydia once, and then from there on, it was always like custom characters that people had made through mods. And I always enjoyed those better because obviously they were made with a little bit more care and hyper specialized preferences that you get when you have the modders creating tens of thousands of mods.
Yeah.
So in comparison to like, I like this game probably like 10 times more than I liked basic on-release Skyrim.
Yeah.
On basic on-release Skyrim, I uninstalled that. I uninstalled it and gave it to a friend to play.
Did you play on PS3?
No. I just hated the game. I was not into it. Sure, it was buggy, but it was also just, there wasn't enough depth there for me.
Yeah.
And people forget that when they look at Skyrim today, all of the expansions are bundled with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're playing on PC, you're almost always installing at the bare minimum, the Skyrim unofficial patch.
Yeah.
Which is just so much better. And I will say that having played that and having remembered that distinctively and being very annoyed and just was like, this game is like, it's good, but it's just so rough.
Mm.
And it wasn't until about a year later that I picked it back up, installed it through Steam this time, actually like got my teeth into it, started to do modding. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, this game is really, really good. And I look forward to, I got it when one of the expansions came out, and it was really, really solid. Mm. And that, in that perspective, that's what Starfield is. Starfield is that first release of the game that I have not encountered. I encountered one bug where somebody was partially in the ground once.
Mm.
I know I am more luckier, which is again weird because I've been having some technical issues with my hardware setup, not with the actual game, but with my hardware. That and those aren't their problem. That's obviously my problem. That's my system's problem, not their problem. They had nothing to do with the fact that I got the wrong system a few years ago. But just overall, I have not seen any bugs at all.
Yeah. That seems to be what everybody's saying, which is like it seems like the reports that you've been hearing were true. It was the most polished game, and it turned out to be the case. Happy day.
Yeah, and so like, is it absolutely groundbreaking in a competitor in this hyper-specific genre, which only Star Citizen, which hasn't been released yet, and has been in development for as long since right before Skyrim was announced, was released. Mm-hmm. Is it better than that? Is it better than No Man's Sky? And I find it really funny because, again, I played No Man's Sky on release. I remember that atrocious, what do you call it? Just the absolute dereliction of every thing that you should be doing in game development. Just turning their back on all of that, releasing one of the worst games I have ever played. People, when they compare No Man's Sky to Starfield, yes, Starfield is not as deep in some mechanics and in some ways, but in other ways it is way, way more. I've tried the last time I tried No Man's Sky was about 2 years ago. Was not engaged with the storytelling at all in the slightest. I just could not care what a bunch of bizarre looking aliens that were going with the same 3 audio lines.
Yeah.
Same
3 species.
Yeah. And you're just trying to read this text, which is very boring, uninformative. You could tell that it's basically a script that's just like meshing certain things together. Not interested in it. I am so interested in the story in Starfield. You meet farmers who are asking for help to fix satellites. Like, that's not something that you would just, that's not something that most people would think of. That's not something that it's not like, hey, save the universe kind of thing. And again, the game is only getting started. I've barely put in like 60 hours into it. I am just absolutely, I'm actually checking my hours. So I put in 51.9 hours, almost at 52 hours.
Nice.
And I've just got to say that as a game in the release schedule that we've seen recently, how is it? I would say that it probably is one of the best. I think that Baldur's Gate is slightly better in the sense that that it just tickles my fancy just slightly more. But Starfield is already in easily in my top like 20 games of all time.
Wait, sorry, Baldur's Gate is right.
Baldur's Gate is like sitting at like number 3 right now. Starfield is in the top 20.
Really?
I would say probably, I'd say probably in the top probably 12 or 13 at the moment. And it's going to end up climbing
with mods,
with the expansions that they have planned, with the absolutely amazing growth that this game will have. And that is not something that I would say about other games. If in many circumstances we look at a game that has a poor release and we go, don't worry, the mods will fix it. That is not something that you can say about most games. Most games don't have, a million mods and 2 billion downloads of mods. Okay, that's probably a little. 100,000 mods and 2 billion downloads. There we go. That's Skyrim numbers. No, I think that's Fallout 4's number. I think Skyrim has like more mods than that, and it's probably got closer to 5 billion downloads. It's ridiculous. It was like, it's absolutely ridiculous. That is something that is baked in with a Bethesda game, an official Bethesda game. Some people were saying, well, Bethesda put out that stupid vampire game. No, that was not. Yes, Bethesda, like corporate name, not the same studio. Like Todd Howard wasn't working on whatever that game was called. I've deleted it from my memory.
76.
So bad. No, the vampire one.
Oh,
the
Redfall.
recent one. Oh, that's what it was called. Yeah, that thing. Absolutely hot garbage. Just like absolutely hot garbage, not worth touching at all in the slightest. It's but again, it was made by a different studio under different leadership that didn't really do a very good job. Weren't encouraged to either. Then that's a fault of the corporate structure that kind of had that there. A little bit of the modern Microsoft, but for the most part, no. It's we're looking at a baked-in experience of modding that will come to this game 100%. It's already here. It's already been just smashing it. I had this pulled up here and I totally forgot to clear this. We have to date, we're looking at over a million mods so far for Starfield.
Sorry, you cut out there. What? Over how many?
Over 1 million downloaded mods.
Oh wow! Okay.
So mods downloaded over 1 million times. This is just like we are just getting started. Like this is nowhere near where we're going to be in a month. So it's insane. 26 pages of mods, so that's 26 times 20. It's an it is going to be an absolute monster as far as gaming goes. Is it the game of the year? Not in its current state. I think Baldur's Gate snatched that pretty good. I think that if you were comparing this with Hogwarts, I think Starfield is slightly better than Hogwarts. In the sense that there were a lot of things in Hogwarts that we wanted that we didn't get, that are now apparently coming. Apparently they have greenlit an expansion. They've gone back and forth on that twice now. It's been really kind of annoying story-wise.
Really? Okay. Are we getting Quidditch?
Yeah. We're getting Quidditch at some point. There's a separate game coming out that is all about Quidditch.
Okay.
It's actually the main thing, and I think that they were trying to. Warner Brothers was trying to like not step on too many toes with that. I think that's probably the reason why. But yeah, it's just overall, I will say that this is probably the second best game of the year.
Sure.
Now, some people will say, what about, all these other games that have come out? This is a very good year for gaming.
It's one of the best that we've had in a long time. RE4 remake, Dead Space remake, Final Fantasy 16, Sea of Stars, which just came out, is apparently amazing. A couple others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, Hogwarts, a couple other ones where it's like yes, this game is better than most of those, but I'm not saying by a ton. It's not like this isn't like, first place finisher finished like 20 seconds ahead of the next guy, and then he finished like 30 seconds ahead of the next guy, and so on and so forth. This was like everybody was within 5 seconds of each other for the top like 6 games, I would say. Even just the other releases that we've had in the last week, Jagged Alliance 3, bunch of other games. It's like these are all really good. I haven't even finished Jagged Alliance yet. It's so annoying.
Right.
But it's just such a good year, and all of these titles are really good. But you have to look at this game and realize that this is missing a handful of small things, but and some people are like, oh, it's only an inch deep. It's a galaxy wide, but only an inch deep. Nah, it's deeper than an inch deep. I don't know what I have run around on planets looking for things to do, looking for interesting encounters and stuff to do. And I specifically chose planets that had life on them, but did not have like, I wasn't sent there via a main quest. I just ran out. Yeah, I just went there, landed in a random spot, and just started to explore.
Nice.
I don't know if there's something wrong with some of these other people's maps or game saves or what. I have seen some people going, I've been running around for 2 hours and I haven't seen a single thing. I don't know what was wrong with that person. And at the moment, I'm going to err on the side that I am either extremely lucky, these people are extremely unlucky, or they've specifically gone to a planet, searched it out, found very little to do on that particular planet, and then use that planet as the showcase. And I hate to say that journalists and streamers would do that for content, but let's be real.
Right.
I think most of them would do that for content in a heartbeat.
Sure.
And we've covered this before in various games where people will replicate bugs intentionally, going, oh my goodness, look at this bug that I have to deal with. This is so annoying. I've had to deal with this nonstop. And in reality, they've had a real hard time fixing that. And in one case, there was a journalist who contacted another friend of mine who said, hey, I can't get this bug to happen. I'm going to stream the game. I need this bug to happen. And the only way they could make it happen was by uninstalling by backdating their computer to before the game was patched on release day so that they could make the bug happen again. Like, that's dirty. That's filthy journalism. And it's not good. And I wouldn't say that that's exactly what's going on here, but I have not found, I don't know, I've just not found anything boring about the game.
It's this is not to say that there's anything wrong with thinking that the game is boring. All art is subjective, but that's just Syb's experience. Now, Syb, I got some specific questions that I want to ask you that I haven't really been able to get answers from a lot, like reading other people's reviews. So, from what I can understand, stuff like the combat's really good. Stuff like music, world design, art direction, all that stuff is really good. But I haven't really seen people go into great specifics in regards to stuff like, well, I mean, I've heard people say certain things about certain details that maybe some more prominent reviewers have glossed over, either to avoid controversy or whatever. So I'd like to get a full unfiltered take from you. Let's start with the graphics. So from what I understand, sometimes this game can look downright gorgeous. Particularly with just looking at the big vistas that are in front of you. But I've also heard that sometimes when you get close up to NPCs or to greenery, it can look kind of ugly. But that might have just been something that is localized entirely on the Xbox consoles and maybe not the PC. What has your experience been with the graphics overall?
So my machine is not good right now. It's not good to work this. I almost... I was actually below the official minimum.
I see.
So now that was right before we got this running. I actually managed to get a new SSD in it, and I've got a new video card coming, a couple other things.
Okay.
But as a weaker machine, on the first couple of days, I did notice that it just didn't look great, because I was running it on low. Mm-hmm. Everything was on low. A bunch of options were turned off. And it was actually Ash who, in the last 2 days ago, he and I basically kind of sorted out a bunch of the options to fine filter the options to actually get it running decently with optimizing things a little bit more and doing some other stuff. I have not right now I have not used mods. Up to this point, I've not used mods. I'm going to be using mods probably starting maybe even tonight. But I wanted to get that first unmodded experience in as my kind of first review process. And then, going forward, I'm going to be modding quite heavily, I would assume. But there were some options when we fiddled with it, made the game look way better. Just way better. There's a couple of options in the settings that are, I don't want to say dumb, but I don't know why they're there. I legitimately don't know why they're there. So render resolution scale is one of them. I did not seem to me to be taking a big hit to my FPS by turning this from 50% to 100%. But it made the game look about twice as better as it did when it was sitting at sub 50%.
Okay.
So whatever that render resolution scale is, oh good lord, don't mess with that.
Okay.
Then there's a handful of other things. Indirect lighting, keep that up if you can. Volumetric lighting, put that up to at least medium.
Okay.
A handful of other options, keep shadows fairly low. That'll help a lot. Keep grass quality low. Again, that'll help a lot, especially on planets where there's a lot of where there's actual vegetation and stuff.
Okay. All right. So
a bunch of other things where it's just turn those off or remove them or disengage them, and the game looks so much better.
Okay. Well, that's encouraging. Given your hardware, that you were still able to get it to a point where you're quite happy with it. Then again, when it comes to Bethesda games, it's not, or Bethesda adjacent games like Fallout New Vegas, it's not necessarily the graphics that we're concerned with. It's the gameplay. Now, as much as you and I really like Skyrim, and I know you really like Fallout 4, I need to get back to play that game to figure out how much I really enjoy it and maybe play with mods. But as great as those games are, they did take a step backward in terms of immersion via traditional RPG mechanics and simplifying the building of your character. What does Starfield do in that regard? Does it maintain the same relative simplicity of the Skyrim and Fallout 4? Does it make it simpler or more complicated? And whatever the case may be, do you like what they've done?
I do. So as far as combat goes, the combat is there's a handful of things missing from combat. I would like a large two-handed melee weapon.
Uh-huh.
Some faster animations, some better animations with that. That is always a problem and has always been a problem with Bethesda games. They do not know how to use a two-handed weapon. They just it's like every melee weapon is like a 40-pound club that somebody who has no fighting experience with at all tries to use. That's how I would describe almost all melee. Some of the short sword weapon attacks and dagger attacks are a little bit better, but overall anything that has any kind of serious weight or substance to it in their games, it's always kind of trash. Which mods fix. One of my favorite mods in Skyrim fixes and changes all of the combat animations for two-handed weapons.
Yeah.
So it's not like these things are hard to fix. They're there. They're prevalent. Some of the animation mods in Skyrim are, I think, one of the big ones. that does do combat stuff is like it's like one of the top 10 mods. On
I had that mod
Nexus.
installed.
Yeah. So it's like again, not hard to fix. It is a little hard to fix in the early days, but like a year down the road, probably not going to be an issue. I was expecting some lightsabers, didn't get them. Kind of disappointed.
We've been getting Y-wings and X-wings though. Have you seen those mods?
Yeah. We're getting the ship mods, and man, some of them look really great. That's really what I mean. Tight. I was like, I messed with the ship creation for 6 hours, just trying to like figure out the basic version, so that when all these new mods come out, it's like, yeah, we're gonna be getting a ton of these. It's gonna be great.
You were trying to make yours look like Voltron, weren't you?
No, just like it's like just a simple. It's not, and that is one of my gripes about the game, is that the ship creation tool is good, but not everything, but a lot of the designs do look very, and I know this is a word that they used, NASA punk. Yeah. It looks very NASA punk. It looks really set up to be kind of this, like, everything's modular. It's a little bit like The Expanse, but they don't have the nice ships or the nice stuff about The Expanse. They don't have the nice like armor plating and other stuff. And again, I look at that and I'm like, oh man, I do want that sleek, Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, all of the stars type ships. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. Battlestar Galactica, that kind of stuff. It's like, I do want that stuff. I do want fighters, actually. I think fighters would be really, really cool. There are some hints and some ships that do look like that. I did encounter one ship that had a very nice sleek hull, and it looked really great, and it was really cool. Part of a major quest. Won't spoil anything. But most of the ships, the vast majority of them, have this modular kind of looking design that I'm not directly a fan of. But again, it's like we know the mods are going to come. I'm sooner or later, I'm going to get to fly one of those giant pyramid starships from Stargate. It's going to happen. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be able to get all the mods and walk around like a Goa'uld and with glowing eyes. It's going to be awesome. I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. But no, the ship design options are a little bit weaker than I would like. The weapons and the like how you actually build the ship is actually like way deeper than I've even had a chance to get into, and is really, really cool. And if you want to build a gigantic, I'm talking like monstrous sized mega ship carrier, not like flight carrier, but like cargo carrier, like be the ultimate space trucker, this game is for you. You can be the ultimate space trucker, and there's a whole side of the game that's completely built around that kind of gameplay and that kind of like iconography of like being a space trucker. It's actually a thing. So yeah, really cool in that regard.
Nice. Now, what was the other thing? Oh yes. So staying on the subject of spaceships. So one thing that I've been a little bit worried about is whether or not the space elements, like when you're in the ship, when you're in between planets, when you're dogfighting and stuff like that, if it felt like it flowed organically with all typical Bethesda questing stuff when you're down on the planet doing quests. Did you find that all the stuff when you're in the spaceship and traveling from planet to planet, that added and felt like a natural part of the game? Or is it like I've been hearing one or two people say, is that it's kind of shallow? Like, what's your opinion? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. So, like, does this game have good spaceship system? It's coming from a person who played starting all the way back from X-Wing and TIE Fighter. Sorry, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. That is a DOS-based game. For those of you who don't know what DOS is, go ask your great-grandparents. But yeah, starting from there, playing the Wing Commander series, the Privateer series, all that stuff, all the way through this, right up to Elite Dangerous, and I even gave Eve a try every once in a while.
Excuse my language. You've tried
literally tried everything. I will say that it is not the greatest space combat simulator. It is probably slightly higher than mid-tier.
Okay. That's fine.
It is not as advanced as Elite Dangerous, or there was another game that came out recently that was all about a space fighter. And it kept on blue screening my computer, so I had to uninstall it. It was a real shame. Just something in that game just was causing massive problems for me. I can't remember what it is, but in that game, in games like that, it's like, yes, the environments are different though. You're in both of those scenarios, you're flying around enormous mega hulks of gigantic ships that have been destroyed in space. Like just like ships that are 1,000,000 times larger than the one you're flying. Like you're literally flying around planet-sized chunks of old broken machinery and stuff like that. In that perspective, yes, I will say that it is not nearly as good as that is. Not nearly as good as some of the combat in No Man's Sky, but not by much. The scale between those things is like it could be better. I would like to see that, but because we are playing a NASA punk game, this actually makes a little bit more sense in the scope of the universe that they're bringing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a result of them specifically doing that because they knew their engine couldn't handle something like Elite Dangerous? I don't think they planned that far ahead. I don't think that was their. I think they had decided early on to go with space punk.
Mm-hmm.
NASA punk,
mm-hmm.
and that was their goal from the get-go. Is there the ability to fly into the planets and do all this other stuff? It's like, no, but that's ridiculous on its. That is ridiculous on its face, and I hate to say it, but space games you do lose a lot of like sense of realism when you fly from Earth to Venus in 45 minutes in one game, and it's like that's like at the current speeds that you have in the standard like starfighters and stuff like that don't have just like the ability to ramp up to like 0.1 of light speed or 0.2 of light speed or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like 10 and 20% of light speed. That trip is going to take you. I mean, it's not just going to take you hours; it's going to take you years. Like it's just not a thing to do. And what they're showcasing with this game is they use a grav jump system where it's like if you got to fly to the Earth to the moon, you're in Earth orbit and you want to fly to the moon. Well, normally that's going to take you about 3 days.
Yeah.
They just grav jump from one to the other. And then you kind of fly around like immediate space. And again, I know that some people, they want that, and not saying that that's bad or that that's incorrect. When I say that it's kind of like, you do lose a sense of bit of realism in that. It's like that is true in the sense that, you've had games where you can take off from a planet, like, again, No Man's Sky is probably the best example of this.
Yeah.
You literally take off the planet, fly into the atmosphere. Their ranges on those planets are ridiculously close. Like they don't make logical sense.
Right.
The stars are 1% of, it's like 0.001% of the size that they are in actual reality. Right? Like the star is massive. It's so big that you couldn't even, all the supercomputers in the world wouldn't be able to render the surface of the sun from every angle. It's just not going to happen. It's just a weird thing.
Right. And you know what, like I am one of those people that was really looking forward to being able to do stuff like that, like being able to travel down to the like through the atmosphere and then land on like sort of like what the Star Citizen is going for. But you know what? I would rather have what Starfield is offering me, which is a bunch of curated, carefully crafted quests and worlds, than being able to go from space down to the ground with 15 quintillion planets and then repeat the same gameplay loop over and over and over. So it's fine. But that's good. I'm glad that it's not distracting and that there is some substance to what you get to do with the spaceships. Okay. Yeah. So we've been going on for about 35 minutes now. I think we should wrap things up. Well, we'll return to this next week when I've had some time to play it as well, and we'll discuss more because this game's huge. It's going to be on everybody's mind for the next couple of months at least, even when stuff like Lies of P and stuff comes out. But before we move on just to these other two small stories, Saib, I just want you to give us your closing remarks and thoughts.
Overall, the game, you do have to accept it as a Bethesda game, which means that you might not like having to wait for the bugs and mods to add things or features or stuff that you would want to do. It's not built like Skyrim is, where in every direction, 30 seconds in any direction, there's something to see. It's way more realistic in the sense that things are usually about a kilometer apart. And I have seen a lot of people complain about the distance between like places of interest on a planet. Again, things are about a kilometer apart. and if you have a jump pack and you've like learned how to use that to fast travel, you don't have to. Would it be nice for them to add vehicles? I'm sure they'll get around to it. I think. I really think so. I really think they'll add vehicles at some point. I think that's just not something that they had ready to go at launch, and that they're going to add it probably with an expansion down the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that overall the game is a true to form Bethesda adventure game, and I think that's not only great. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, dude.
If you want to know, I have put in, I think, around 3,000 hours into Skyrim. I put around 2,000 hours into Fallout 4. There is no. This is not something that. This is not a game that I think is bad or in any way like lacking. I think it's great the way it is. I think that it has a lot of room to grow, and that's what we want. Because if I were to give you a fully installed, fully updated 250 mods in Skyrim or Fallout 4, most people would just be overwhelmed. And I think that this game is already almost as overwhelming as that.
Wow.
And that they didn't want to do that because it would literally, it would just literally like not help you. Yeah, it would just be bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're looking at here. And I think that just overall, we can easily look at the previous games and say, nah, we've got something that's going to be absolutely amazing. If you don't want to jump into it early, then don't. Wait until a bunch of these things are added. Wait until the modders have gone in and added a bunch of stuff. Wait until one of the big expansions comes out. Then jump into it. But honestly, I think this is probably their best Bethesda game so far.
Just on its own, yeah.
Yeah, on its own by a small amount. Again, like it is very similar to Elder Scrolls and to Fallout. Obviously, it's built in the same engine with significant upgrades. Obviously, there are things and directions that you can go in that it's going to make this better. You get to choose what you want to do. If you don't want to do any of this stupid, crazy, dumb stuff that you think is boring, like the space stuff, you're only going to be forced to do the actual space stuff once or twice when a quest actually demands it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to avoid that and you want to spend all your time on a planet, on just the planets, like you could just fast travel to all of them and skip the whole space stuff. If you want to skip crafting and just focus on fast loot and explosions, you could do that. I felt no pressure to do anything that I didn't want to do. I've just been doing what interests me in the moment, and that's what a Bethesda game excels at, is letting you do what you want to do in the moment. And I think that's fine. And not only is it fine, I think it's great.
Wonderful. Man, I'm so excited. And that's a perfect note to end out on, guys. Have you had the chance to play Starfield yet, or are you like me, where you're probably going to start playing it? I guess we're releasing this tomorrow because we're recording this on today's Monday, right? Labor Day. So we're going to be releasing on Tuesday. So have you had a chance to play Starfield yet? What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree with anything that Syb has said? Let us know in the comment section below, but of course, just be civil. We'd love to hear from you. All right. Man, I can't wait. So we just have a couple other smaller stories to get through. One sad story, but then we're going to cap it off with something that makes me really, really happy. So, Syb, Volition Studios. They're responsible for a lot of legendary games. I wasn't really around for... Hold on. What were the ones... What was it called? Free Space? And Descent?
No. It was called Descent. Oh my gosh. Free Space was like so far after that. No, Descent was the original, again, DOS game. It was... And the weird thing is that I've said this a couple of times before. I'm really confused about how AI has evolved in video gaming. And I know that there's a lot of talk about like dumbing AI down, because you can play against AI that will absolutely destroy you. And that is not a fun experience. I think that there's it's actually really hard to beat like a map of like multiple AI enemies in StarCraft playing against you, because they just play and click so fast and give like they can micromanage multiple things at once. That is really difficult.
Yes.
As a human player to do. But Descent is one of those games that when it first came out, the AI in that game scared me. Because they learned your tactics, they learned how to maneuver around you, they learned how to feint you out and do things to kind of ward against the way that you played. And then we've seen very little. I would say we've seen backwards growth on that kind of an AI for a really, really long time, which is really disturbing and kind of spooks me out a little bit for a number of other unrelated reasons.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that sort of thing is very common when it comes to the world of gaming. Like, we're constantly going on about how, like, all that EverQuest stuff. But anyways, the ultimate point is that the people that made it, Volition, for 30 years, ever since stuff like the Descent to Free Space to Summoner, to the games that I grew up with, games like Red Faction and all the Saints Row games, I played all of them. They are legendary, a legendary studio. And it's such a shame that the video game industry is at like where it is now, where their legendary status can be taken down by one really, really bad game. Not just their status, but, well, as we found out this past week, the entire studio got shut down because of Saints Row, the reboot that launched last year and was critically panned by everybody. And understandably so. It was a bad game. But, you know, it's just looking back on what they've offered us in terms of, like, Red Faction. That was, like, one of the first games that featured destructible environments. Remember, like, how mind-blowing that was back in the day? And for people, like, I played the crap out of Saints Row 3 and 4. 4 is like one of my guilty pleasure games. Like, so much of the stuff that they put out was so good. And then Saints Row 2022 happened, and then now they're gone because they were bought up by Embracer and they lost a lot of money on it, and then they just got subsumed. So yeah, they put out both Embracer, the people that own Volition, and Volition themselves, they put out statements saying that they were closing down, and it's
which was stated less than a month after they had the head of the studio had made this video saying, yeah, it's 30 years in gaming. We can't wait to see what we're going to do over the next 30 years. And it was like, oh, that sucks. That is, that is not good. That sucks. Terrible timing on that. Almost, but things were not good before that. I think he really, he did that as a bit of an act of desperation. I think he saw the axe coming.
Trying to put a brave face forward. Yeah.
Trying to like reassure everybody, like, hey, no, we're going to be around for a long time. Did you play Red Faction or Saints Row? Yes, I did play Red Faction. I liked it a lot. I liked, obviously, again, all of their older games. Even played The Punisher back in the day.
Oh wow!
Descent. I grew Descent again. It's like I grew up as a big DOS boy playing tons and tons of DOS games. I had these games on old hard drives and floppy disks. This stuff was good, and now I can't complain that they moved from Descent, aka Free Space, the Summoner, into Saints Row. That was a good move for them. In 2006, they had this great hit, but just over the years, they moved away from what was good, and they doubled down on this last move to just appeal to, I think, non-gamers.
Yeah,
I think that was their issue. It's not about the storyline. It's like you can write a storyline about anything and make it good if you have a good enough writer. You just look at Baldur's Gate, right? Like, who knew, what's going on with that? If you played it, no spoilers. You can make any storyline good. You can make any type of character interesting. Again, if you actually care to write a proper story. I think that they hadn't done that. I think they got rid. I'm going to guess that they either got rid of somebody or that somebody had a brain cancer that just destroyed their capacity to do their job. Because all of those characters in the latest Saints Row game were they were
annoying.
Annoying and not well written. Because again, if they were well written, anybody who disagreed with their stance would still find a way to engage with the story. If they're written, and how do we know that? Because villains, there's some villains. Darth Vader. Is Darth Vader pre-redemption a good guy? No. You were more likely to be choked out than to just get a hello from him.
Yeah.
Darth Vader is not a persona that you want to hang around with and drinking beers.
No,
I think story wise, I think he only had 2 friends after he got put in the suit, and like in the lore, like actually lore wise, he only had 2 friends, and he ended up murdering both of them.
Right, Palpatine and
there was a stormtrooper that became his friend.
Oh, and, really?
Yeah. There was an old clone trooper who befriended him for the sake of like realizing that he was alone and lonely, and I think I have to look it up, but I don't know if it's canon anymore. Right. But he did kill him.
But the ultimate point is that Darth Vader.
The point is, the point is that when you write a villain, if you write the villain good enough, people like the villain. They don't like him as an individual person. They just like him because he's badass and cool. That's a very simplistic way of pointing out that you don't have to make people forcibly like your characters because they have to, period. You have to make those characters actually interesting. You have to give them stories that are engaging. Even when people hate the character Cersei from Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
People know Cersei. They know what an absolute B-word she was. They know how much of a psychopath she was. But they still like watching the character because it's a fascinating character.
Yeah.
It's so cool to look at somebody who's really messed up, but really cool and really well written when you're reading about, dark things. It's like they couldn't do that with the main heroes, the people you're supposed to like. You're supposed to like the heroes. You're supposed to get involved in their stories. And they couldn't do that because the characters just came off as annoying, preachy. Any character comes across as preachy is never, ever, ever going to be popular.
Yeah, even if they preach your particular brand of politics. If they were to do that, like if I were to watch something and they were to, I don't know, I'm not going to say what my brand of politics are, but even if they were, that would still be distracting. It would be annoying. It would take me out of the story, right?
Now, I know that you really like the clown party, because again, I think it'd be cool to have a circus set up on every street corner, but some people they think that's a little crazy.
What are you talking about?
I thought you were part of the clown party that wanted to bring clowns to every neighborhood.
What? Well, I guess I'm outed right now, but is that so bad, ladies and gentlemen? Anyways.
We're joking, obviously. Some people would get the joke. They'll be like, clowns. All politicians are clowns. Exactly. That's the point. That's the point of the joke. No, we don't actually have a clown party. Yeah.
Scary
we don't
clowns.
Actually have a scary clown party in Canada, although that would be hilarious.
It'd be more efficient than the one that's currently in power now. I'll just say that.
It's more efficient than pretty much every government currently in power.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing though, is like, again, it's like even with a hard political or hard like ideological bent, people were just not interested in the characters. And again, people weren't interested in the characters because they were poorly written. And if you have characters that are written well, and I can make almost any character interesting. I know I'm tooting my horn a little bit, but I really do think I can make literally any kind of character, villain, hero, bland, boring, normal, whatever. One of the greatest two characters in recent cinema history is the two guys from the Pirates movie, the one with the fake eye and then the fatter, shorter guy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like those two were
what parlay means. Yeah.
Those two were meant to be, I think they were meant to be killed off in the first they were supposed to die at like the first end of the first movie, but they did their job so well that they ended. That's what I heard. I heard a rumor that they were only supposed to be like in one thing, and they got written into almost every single Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Why? Because they were super interesting. They were funny. They were cool. They weren't annoying, but they were fun at the same time. And if you're going to envelop yourself in fantasy as a form of escapism, you want something that's interesting. You don't want to be preached at by somebody who is at best annoying and at worst just really just rubs you just really the wrong way because they look at you like you're dirt.
Yeah. And even if you can't do that for the story, you can get away with having a bad story in a video game as long as the gameplay is good. But it wasn't. It, at best, was like a mediocre version of what we got with Saints Row 3 and 4, which isn't good because those games are pretty old and, yeah. Anyways, it's sad. I'm sorry to see Volition go. And I wish they could have had a second chance to maybe deliver us something new, but I don't know, maybe they were just burnt out after 30 years. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that. All right, let's just conclude on this little piece of news. So, my favorite game of the year so far, is Final Fantasy 16. I adore that game. Admittedly, I do have more problems with that game that crop up in my mind a couple months after playing it, stuff regarding the story, stuff regarding the combat. That said, I do think that the strengths that the game possesses are enough to outweigh a lot of the weaknesses. And it's interesting that I say that because I think this game has a lot of weaknesses, but the positives there are so good that it makes me want to rate it something like an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. I adore the game. And one of my favorite things about it is just the world. It's a wonderfully realized world. I love the way that they use the typical Final Fantasy tropes, images, characters, concepts, names, because, no spoiler, every Final Fantasy game has a character named Sid, and the Sid in this game is probably the best Sid ever, in my opinion. But anyways, when we heard initially that they didn't have any plans for DLC, that was a little bit disappointing, because I just want to have more of an excuse to explore the world of Valencia, because it's just so fascinating. Mm-hmm. However, Naoki Yoshida, the producer of Final Fantasy 16, let us know just a day or two ago via Twitter that because the game has been responded to so positively by people saying that they just want to go back to Valencia, expressing my exact same sentiment, that we're getting 2 paid DLC. Woohoo! That makes me very, very happy. Although there is one thing that makes me a little bit paranoid and weary. So, no spoilers. Final Fantasy 16, when the game ends, it ends. And that's not a spoiler, because that's the case for every Final Fantasy game. Once you get to the end, it's done. And the way Final Fantasy 16 ends, there's something that happens post-credits that if they were to show what happens after that, it could ruin it. Let's just say that. So if they do that, that could be very disappointing. I think that would be a mistake. That said, I don't think they have to do that. And here's why. There's something in the game that is sort of like a big... It feels weird to call it a plot hole, because everybody figured that when we came across this thing in the game, that if they were to address it, it would be addressed in some sort of DLC. Like, we saw it and we were like, well, they said there'd be no DLC, but there has to be DLC to address this particular thing. And I figured that for at least one of the paid DLCs, what they're going to do is they're going to just insert story that wasn't there in the first place that you can play before you get to the final part of the original story of the game. And I'm very, very intrigued in that regard. But for the other thing, I don't know. Maybe they'll introduce another character or something. But aside from that one little bit of worry, I'm very, very excited about this. I wonder, maybe it'll take them a couple of years to finish it. That's fine. Just give me an excuse to go back to Valencia. And plus side, this will make you very happy. They're bringing it to PC. And it makes me happy too, because, oh my god, that game is so gorgeous to look at. Oh my god. And I want to play it at 60 FPS. So, yes, I will be happy to buy it again in a couple years when it comes to PC. Saib, any thoughts before we conclude?
Well, just one. I'm surprised you don't know about the Final Fantasy game that doesn't have an ending. That is
FF14?
Yeah, I'm making a joke.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
well, aside from the MMO, sorry.
Yeah, obviously. Wasn't there a ton of DLC added for Final Fantasy 15, though?
Yeah, there was, but from what I understand, the way that game was created, it was crafted in a way so that you would have to buy the DLC to fill in the gaps in the story. I never played Final Fantasy 15, okay. But Final Fantasy 16, like the comments from the creator prior to the game coming out, and when you actually play the game and see how the story pans out, you really do believe that. Like, I'm sort of contradicting myself, because I did say that there's something in the story that you feel like they would have to have DLC for, but even if they didn't, it's enough of a self-contained story that you would be okay with them not addressing that thing. But I'm happy that they are. And it's not like Final Fantasy 15 where it's like it's going to fix the story in a way. Sorry, did that answer your original question?
Yeah, for the most part. I'm also happy that they are releasing it on PC. I think, and I really hope this is the last time they do a solo platform release.
Yeah.
I think that anybody in the industry who says we need to have a solo console release for a major title that is as big as Final Fantasy, like, obviously it's like Nintendo has their thing. But even then, I stand my ground on this. If you are telling somebody to release a product on a single console, like not releasing it on any other platforms, just a single console, you're an absolute idiot, and you do not have what it takes to be in this industry right now.
Yeah.
You are a complete fool. Congratulations for playing yourself like an idiot. I think that Nintendo should move to smartphone devices and tablets as quickly as possible. I think that every game that comes out for the, whether it's PlayStation or Xbox, should also drop on PC, because again, just financially, you're an idiot if you don't.
Yeah.
Most
games aren't going to end up like Zelda, where you sell 18 million copies.
Yeah.
Like just in the first few months, right? Like Final Fantasy. We all know what Final Fantasy is. And at the moment, it's only sold like 3 million copies, which is impressive considering that it's only on PS5. But for such a staple as Final Fantasy, it should be selling way more than that. But still,
yeah. And considering that they were a multi release, they started out as a not started out, but they've been releasing on other platforms for a very long time, and they have a huge player, huge amount of players on the PC playing their other games, playing Final Fantasy 14, the MMO. And again, if you're not that, if you look at that and just say, you know what, we just really don't want those people's businesses. We just want to, shove it in their face and just laugh at them for being weak and useless. Especially when it's the PC that we're talking about. The damn game is made on a PC. Okay, it's not programmed on an actual, like, it's not programmed. Yes, obviously it's programmed for the software of the PS5, but it's not programmed on a PS5. They can get it running on a PC. And you're just an idiot if you don't do that, because you're turning your nose up at the largest number of people, potential customers buying your product. So yeah, it's just stupid, and it's like, well, congratulations on figuring out something that you should have done, because it has put. And I've been reading about the pressure. I've been talking with people from Japan, and they said that the studio was shocked at how few number of games they sold, and they were shocked at the low number of engagement. They were expecting an extra 10 million. Sorry, not 10 million. They were expecting an extra 30% of the numbers just from Japan that they didn't get. And the answer to that question is most of those players are not on the PS5 because they couldn't buy it when it first came out, and they instead upgraded to PC. And if any analytic...
Well, that plus Final Fantasy 16 is sort of a big departure from what the Japanese market tends to like gameplay-wise. Yeah.
But it's just...
fair point.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like any analyst who's worth their salt would have had those numbers in front of them. And instead, what has happened here, according to my sources, is that the work at the studio is stressful, because they are all worried about their jobs. Well, they wouldn't have needed to be worried about their jobs if some idiot had said, not said, hey, let's release on one console only and ignore our massive PC audience. It's like, and to take this long, they didn't even have plans for this until it didn't sell well.
Yeah.
That's the story. It's the story from IGN and a whole bunch of other places. That Square Enix basically were going to stiff the entire PC player base. They had no plans whatsoever to bring this to PC. Period. And again, why anybody would do that with such a major, important title that has so many players on the PC, it's so bizarrely stupid. It's so weird.
Well, Final Fantasy 16 was enough of a story that I would like to think that, at least for the people at Sony, they're going to be rethinking this. I mean, they already have to a certain degree with the way that they're choosing to do some of their PC releases. Hopefully one day that will culminate in a Bloodborne release, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's just, like, that's just crazy, taking a game like that and giving it 60 FPS. Pfft, give me a break. All right. That does it for that, but good news for that story. And that's it for us today for this episode of Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked this particular episode of the podcast, make sure you give this video a like. It not only helps out this video, but all the other videos on the Triple S League channel. I want to thank Syb, as always. Thank you so much for providing such a thorough, concise, and just passionate review of your experience with Starfield so far. Do you have anything else you want to say before we conclude?
Check out our, we're not going to be doing any story spoilers for our guides on Starfield for the next little bit.
Yep.
But we will be touching on some issues and maybe getting into some of the spicy stuff that's been going online recently. Let us know if you want that. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear back from you. I'd love to hear what everybody thinks of Starfield. I'm not saying that it's Game of the Year. I think that it's a very good game that is up there with all of the other amazing games that we've had this year. Just let me know what you think.
Yeah. And you guys can just find me at my main channel at Max Derrat. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. Make sure you go check it out. I've been getting a lot of positive response to the videos I've been doing on Zelda recently. I've been getting into the Legend of Zelda series and having a blast with it. So yeah, just let me know what you think. All right, we'll be back next week when I will be giving my thoughts on Starfield, and Syb will be giving his more evolved thoughts, maybe on the story. Until then, guys, remember to stay safe and stay yellow.